Today we're doing something that's essential if you're developing in New South Wales. They're part of the biggest shift in how planning, housing and housing targets and development assessment will operate across the state. So if you want to stay one step ahead, avoid nasty surprises and understand the new dynamics in New South Wales planning law, this episode is just for you. Developers targeting major housing precincts should absolutely keep an eye on this new channel. So that's been fixed now, that you no longer need to run concurrent modification processes just to deal with minor variations between concept and detail. This is the legal landscape of 2025. It's leaner, sharper, and packed with opportunities if you know how to navigate it. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Property Development Unpacked Show. I'm Goran, and today we're doing something that's essential if you're developing in New South Wales. We're actually unpacking the latest changes to the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979. These aren't just minor tweaks, they're part of the biggest shift in how planning, housing and housing targets and development assessment will operate across the state. So if you want to stay one step ahead, avoid nasty surprises and understand the new dynamics in New South Wales planning law, this episode is just for you. Now, 2 days ago, the New South Wales Parliament passed the Environmental Planning and Assessment Amendment Bill 2025. It includes a suite of reforms to streamline approvals, modernize the housing system, and clarify some tricky legal grey zones. On paper, it looks like efficiency. In reality, it's a new playbook, especially for developers navigating a life science housing precincts or SSD or state significant development projects. Let's get into what's actually changed. Number one is a streamlined decision for SSD and the Housing Delivery Authority. Now, the Act now enables faster decisions for projects recommended to be declared state significant development. This change avoids overlapping advisory roles between the Planning Minister and the Independent Planning Commission. In translation, if you're working on something big, you might get SSD status faster, but it also means fewer hurdles once the department is on your site, which is good. Now, the Housing Delivery Authority can now operate with greater autonomy and less delay. So developers targeting major housing precincts should absolutely keep an eye on this new channel. Number two is a greater flexibility for concept proposals. So what that means is if you've ever done a stage DA, you know how painful it can be to modify earlier concept approvals while submitting the new stages. I've certainly gone through a couple of these, and it's definitely not a smoothest process, if you will. So that's been fixed now, that you no longer need to run concurrent modification processes just to deal with minor variations between concept and detailed DAS. In my view, this is a really, really good change, and it's going to help a lot with the process and moving forward, because every time we've done this in the past, especially when you're doing design competition, it gets pretty complicated with the modification of the concept and the detailed DAs, etc. So authorities can now conditionally approve new stages while modifying previous consents, streamlining the workflow and saving months. Number three, submission rights tighten. This bill is still considered, and the law now clarifies that only submissions made during the public exhibition period will count for things like appeal rights. But, and this is the key, consent authorities can still consider late submissions. And this is quite often very typical. We've lodged a DA, we're talking to council, proactively communicating with them. And when I give them a call and they say, look, the notification period has ended, how's it all going? Sometimes you can download all the submissions online, sometimes you got a request for them. And quite often they will actually tell you on the phone that yes, the notification period has ended, but even late submissions we have to consider. The key is that the consent authorities can still consider late submissions. So community groups who pop up late in the process, they can still be heard, but their legal rights are narrow. This gives developers more certainty, especially in contentious infill zones. Number four, fixed for the Buyozo decision, modifications without works are now legal. So what that means is one of the more technical but important fixes related to Section 455 and Section 456 of the Act. This deal with modifications to development consents. Following the Guy versus Buyozo case, there was a legal confusion about whether you could modify a condition without changing the physical development. Now, the court said no, but this amendment restores the original intention. You can now lodge a modification to conditions only, even if there's no physical change to the works, and we've done this many times. In fact, I'm doing something similar right now. That's a huge win for developers dealing with outdated problematic consent conditions. Number 5, housing targets, now formal and legally declared. So what that means is the Minister for Planning can now declare housing targets for specific regions or local government areas. These aren't vague numbers anymore. They're actually published legal orders with measurable delivery periods. That means housing supply isn't just a policy wish, it's a performance obligation. And while this doesn't automatically override zoning, and you can bet it will, influence rezonings and LEP reviews and funding decisions, etc., developers who align with declared housing targets will have a much stronger planning argument in 2025 and beyond, which is again great. Number 6, affordable housing contribution, modernized and localized. Another big update, the affordable housing contribution framework has been restructured, and the Act now enables that contributions collected under SEP 70 or the style schema are reinvested locally. So if you're developing in a high need area and you are subject to an affordable housing levy, your money will now stay in that community. Again, I think this is great for the communities, and I'm in the full support of this. And this is going to be a key point of negotiations for rezonings, precinct plannings, and even voluntary planning agreements. Number 7 is 6 cities era is over. And this means new strategic planning model is coming. All references to the 6 cities region have been stripped from the legislation. The Act now enables a fresh set of regional and district plans, giving the state greater flexibility to set strategic direction without being locked into the previous model. Now, this sets the stage for major revamp of the greater cities planning strategy, and developers should expect new frameworks and potentially new priorities in precincts across the metro area. Great. Now, in summary, here's what you need to remember from this episode. Major projects just got cleared part for SSD status. Number 2, you now have more flexibility when you're managing stage DAs and concept BA. Number 3, only exhibition period submission count for legal standing, but light will still matter. Number 4, you can now modify consent conditions without physical work. Number 5, housing targets are no longer soft policy, they are hard law. Number 6, affordable housing levies must stay local. And number 7, strategic planning is entering a new phase and no more 6 cities. Now, this is the legal landscape of 2025. It's leaner, sharper, and packed with opportunities if you know how to navigate it. So if you are submitting a DA, modifying a consent, planning in an SSD play, or preparing a rezoning, these updates matter, and they matter now. Thanks for tuning into another episode of the Property Development Unpacked. If this gives you an edge, subscribe, share, and pass it on to someone you build with. And as I always like to say, life is exactly what you dare to make it. Fortune favors the bold. Thank you.